Hi guys, here we are. I'm going to do a new demo for Lab 1 just to show you where to find everything, and then in order to submit your lab you will need to watch the other video on how to create reports and submit your lab, but I'll show you what you need for the basics of StatCrunch. The first thing we need to do probably is open up My Lab and Mastering. So when you click on that in Canvas, it'll take you to a page that will allow you to open the full My Lab and Mastering site, and we'll click on that big yellow button. Now when this opens, what we'll see is quite a bit here. Many of you may not have actually seen this yet if you've just been using the homework through Canvas, and that's fine, but one of the useful things is that we can open StatCrunch directly from this site by clicking StatCrunch here. And I'll show you a few things. You can go directly to the StatCrunch website, or if you are working on a problem that involves a data set, then you can click on this handy link to get the data sets from your textbook. That way you don't have to type them in. So here's the StatCrunch website. We're not going to use a data set, we're going to create our own today. So here we go to the StatCrunch website. Now the main StatCrunch website has lots of things. Today we're going to type or paste data into a blank data table, and then after that we'll go to create a new report. So let's open up a new blank data table, and what we'll do is we'll use some functions in here that are related to Lab 1. So if we go back to Canvas and we look at our assignments, we'll go back to modules and look for Lab 1. And Lab 1 will tell us what we need to do. Now in Lab 1, we'll see that we're going to work from a textbook problem, number 12 in section 1.3. So if you take a look at that, it'll tell you exactly what you need to do. Alright, this lab requires us to create a data set. We are going to generate random data. So on your StatCrunch data sheet here, we're going to Data, and we will simulate, and we will use discrete uniform. Now in this problem we see that we have values from 1 through 44, which are names of presidents, and we want to obtain a simple random sample of size 8. Now because sometimes random samples result in repetition of numbers, we're going to generate more than 8 values. In fact, it's safe to say we should just generate double that and use the first 8 unique values. So what we're going to do is, in fact, part A will obtain a random sample and part B a second random sample. We can do them both in one step. So the number of rows is how many data values we need. Since we need 8 unique values, we'll go ahead and generate 16 total to make sure we have enough. The number of columns is the number of samples you want. We're going to have 2 samples, one for part A and one for part B. Discrete uniform parameters. Minimum value is 1 and the maximum value is the total number of items on the list, which is 44. Now we want to, the rest of this we're going to just ignore for now. If you want to name your columns, that's fine when you have a lot of columns of data, especially if they represent different things. Naming them is handy, but today we won't worry about that. Now we'll compute, and what we get is 2 random samples. So you notice here 23 gets repeated. So my 8 unique values would be 6, 7, 35, 29, and then 6 is repeated, so I'll skip that. I get 23, then I have a repetition again, then I'm going to use 10, and then 31 and 24, and that should give me 8 unique values, and I don't need to worry about using the rest of what's on the list. I'll do the same for this second column, identify the first 8 unique values, and I'll use those to generate my report or to answer the question. Now I have everything done for my lab in this area, but I do need to save my data set. So I'll go to Data and Save, and I'll save it as Lab 1 Data. And for me, I have quite a few things saved. I probably have something else called Lab 1 Data, but typically when you save things, things do show up in here in the order that they were saved. So you'll always see your most recent saved files first. So you don't have to worry about losing them in amongst other things that have similar names. Okay, so now we're going to think about generating our report. Now if we go back to the main StatCrunch website, it should be here on the last tab that we had, and we'll go to My Reports. We'll say Create a New Report. And when you create your report, it will need a title, Lab 1, you can put your name here, but generally when you submit the URL for this lab, it will be housed in the correct area in Canvas. It is nice to put Lab 1 there, but anything else you put is sort of superfluous. It's not going to need, you don't need that for identifying purposes. You do want to make sure you share with everyone and allow comments. That way I will have full access, full grading access to see it when you submit the URL. In the body of the report, you will type in the names of the presidents. So the values you generated are the values that identify your sample. So for example, my first value was 6. And so in my answer in 1.3 number 12A, my first value is 6, and I'll put 6, and the 6th president was J.Q. Adams. So J.Q. Adams. And so I have that one. The next value was number 7, and I'll type in Jackson, etc. So you'll do that, and then you'll do 1.3 number 12B. And then when you're done typing in the body of your report, you'll also need to attach supporting documentation. Attached results, we don't have any for this lab, you'll see that in the next lab, but we do have a saved data set that supports our answers here and shows where we got our values from. So I'll click to select, and Lab 1 data, you'll notice, is my most recently saved data set, and that's first on the list. Click that, and it shows your data here, so I'll be able to see it to verify that you're actually using StatCrunch correctly to generate random data. The last thing you do is save, and then when you save your report, of course you'll have this. There are a couple of ways to copy the URL. The easiest way to do this is to go up to the address bar in your browser, right-click, and say copy. Now that you have that, you'll go back to Lab 1, and there will be a submit button up here. Submit and paste the URL. And I will let you know, if you do copy a hyperlink, sometimes it has extra characters. So if you have any trouble submitting, please use the method I just showed you, which is to, whoops, where are we? To right click on the address bar and say copy in order to grab the URL, and that will give me correct access to your lab for grading purposes. And that's about it.